Vanessa Morales, a single mother trying to rebuild her life, and Dr. Adrian Calloway, a respected cardiologist with a seemingly perfect life. Their paths crossed in a way that would forever change the lives of not only themselves but also their families. What started as a secret relationship quickly escalated into a series of events that shocked an entire community. As we delve into this case, we'll explore the lives of those involved, the choices they made, and the aftermath of their actions. Stay with us as we piece together the events that led to a tragic double murder and the trial that followed. Don't forget to like, subscribe to True Crime Stories Arena, and share this video to support our channel. Let's begin. Vanessa Morales was a woman determined to rise above the challenges life had thrown her way. At 34, she had already endured more than most. A single mother of 2 young children, Vanessa had recently moved to Los Angeles after a painful divorce. She was eager to start fresh, leaving behind the small town where everyone knew her business and the memories of a failed marriage that had left her emotionally drained. In Los Angeles, Vanessa found herself juggling multiple responsibilities. By day, she worked as a real estate agent, navigating the competitive housing market of the city. By night, she attended business administration classes, hoping to secure a better future for her children. Her life was a constant balancing act, but she was determined to succeed. Despite her busy schedule, there was a void in her life, a longing for companionship and emotional connection. Enter Dr. Adrian Calloway, a man whose life seemed to be the polar opposite of Vanessa's. Adrian was a well-known cardiologist in his early 40s, with a reputation for being both skilled and compassionate. He was married to Laya Calloway, a high-powered attorney who had built a name for herself in the legal world. Together, they had 2 teenage children and lived in an affluent neighborhood in Los Angeles. To outsiders, Adrian and Laya appeared to have it all: successful careers, a beautiful home, and a picture-perfect family. But appearances can be deceiving. Adrian and Laya's marriage had been strained for years. The demands of their careers had created a distance between them, and their once loving relationship had become little more than a partnership of convenience. Adrian, feeling neglected and unfulfilled, began seeking solace elsewhere. Vanessa and Adrian's paths crossed at a charity gala, an event neither of them had planned to attend. Vanessa was there to network for her real estate business, while Adrian was representing the hospital where he worked. Their initial conversation was polite and professional, but there was an undeniable connection between them. Adrian was drawn to Vanessa's warmth and resilience, while Vanessa was captivated by Adrian's charm and confidence. What began as a casual exchange of phone numbers quickly evolved into something more. Adrian reached out to Vanessa under the pretense of discussing real estate opportunities, but their conversations soon turned personal. They began meeting for coffee, then dinners, and eventually, their relationship became romantic. For Vanessa, Adrian represented a chance at love and stability, a man who could provide the emotional support she craved. For Adrian, Vanessa was an escape from the monotony of his life and the frustrations of his marriage. However, their relationship was far from simple. Adrian was still very much married, and while he assured Vanessa that he planned to leave Laya, he always had an excuse for why the timing wasn't right. Vanessa, who had already endured the heartbreak of a failed marriage, wanted to believe Adrian's promises. She convinced herself that their love was worth the risk, even as the weight of their secret began to take its toll. Meanwhile, Laya was beginning to notice changes in Adrian's behavior. He was spending more time away from home, often claiming to be working late or attending medical conferences. He seemed distracted and distant, and Laya's suspicions grew. A sharp and intuitive woman, Laya decided to investigate. She began paying closer attention to Adrian's actions, determined to uncover the truth. As the affair continued, the stakes grew higher. Vanessa started pressuring Adrian to make a decision, while Laya's quiet investigation was leading her closer to the truth. The lives of everyone involved were on a collision course, and the consequences would be devastating. Laya Calloway had always been a woman of precision and control. As a successful attorney, she was no stranger to uncovering hidden truths and navigating complex situations. When her husband Adrian began acting strangely, her instincts told her something was wrong. He was coming home later than usual, his phone was always on silent, and he seemed distracted during their rare moments together. Laya's suspicions grew stronger with each passing day, and she decided to take matters into her own hands. At first, Laya tried to confront Adrian directly, asking him about his late nights and distant behavior. But Adrian was quick to dismiss her concerns, blaming his busy schedule and the stress of his demanding job. Laya wasn't convinced. She began paying closer attention to the small details, his phone calls, his calendar, and even his credit card statements. It didn't take long for her to find the first clue, a receipt for an expensive dinner at a restaurant they had never visited together. The date on the receipt coincided with one of Adrian's supposed work meetings. Determined to uncover the truth, Laya hired a private investigator. The investigator's findings confirmed her worst fears. Adrian was having an affair with a woman named Vanessa Morales. The investigator provided Laya with photos of Adrian and Vanessa together, as well as records of their frequent meetings. Laya was devastated. The man she had built a life with, the father of her children, had betrayed her trust in the most profound way. But Laya wasn't the type to act impulsively. She decided to bide her time, gathering as much evidence as possible. She wanted to ensure that if their marriage ended, she would have the upper hand in any legal proceedings. Laya also wanted to confront Adrian on her own terms, in a way that would leave no room for denial or excuses. Meanwhile, Vanessa was growing increasingly frustrated with Adrian. She had invested so much of herself in their relationship, believing his promises that he would leave Laya and start a new life with her. But as the months went by, Adrian's excuses began to wear thin. Vanessa started to feel like she was being strung along, and her patience was running out. She began pressuring Adrian to make a decision, threatening to expose their relationship if he didn't follow through on his promises. Adrian found himself trapped between two women, each demanding something from him that he wasn't prepared to give. He was desperate to maintain control of the situation, but the walls were closing in. Laya was quietly building her case against him, while Vanessa was growing more vocal and assertive. Adrian's carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack. The breaking point came on a warm summer evening. Adrian had promised Vanessa that he would meet her at her apartment to discuss their future. Vanessa, eager for clarity, had prepared herself for what she hoped would be a decisive conversation. But Adrian wasn't the only one planning to confront Vanessa that night. Laya, armed with the evidence of the affair, had decided it was time to face her husband and his mistress. Laya followed Adrian to Vanessa's apartment, parking her car a short distance away. She watched as Adrian entered the building, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and anticipation. After giving him a few minutes, Laya made her way to the apartment and knocked on the door. When Vanessa opened it, she was shocked to see Laya standing there. Before she could react, Laya pushed her way inside, demanding to speak with both of them. The confrontation that followed was explosive. Laya unleashed months of pent-up anger and betrayal, accusing Adrian of destroying their family and humiliating her. Vanessa, caught off guard, tried to defend herself, insisting that she had believed Adrian's promises and had no intention of hurting anyone. Adrian, caught in the middle, struggled to maintain control of the situation, but his attempts to mediate only made things worse. The argument escalated quickly, with all three shouting over each other. Neighbors later reported hearing raised voices and the sound of objects being thrown. The tension in the room was unbearable, and it was clear that the situation was spiraling out of control. What happened next remains a matter of debate. According to Adrian's later testimony, Laya had brought a gun with her, intending to intimidate Vanessa. He claimed that during the heated argument, Laya pulled out the weapon, and in the chaos that followed, it was accidentally discharged. Vanessa was struck first, collapsing to the floor. Adrian said he tried to wrestle the gun away from Laya, but in the struggle, another shot was fired, hitting Laya. When the police arrived, they found Adrian sitting on the floor, covered in blood, holding the gun. Vanessa and Laya were both dead, their bodies lying just a few feet apart. The scene was one of utter devastation, and the lives of everyone involved had been irrevocably changed. The events of that fateful evening sent shockwaves through the Los Angeles community. News of the double murder spread quickly, and the media latched onto the story, painting it as a scandalous tale of infidelity, betrayal, and violence. The once respected Dr. Adrian Calloway was now at the center of a criminal investigation, and the lives of everyone involved were under intense public scrutiny. When the police arrived at Vanessa Morales' apartment, they found Adrian sitting on the floor, his hands trembling as he held the gun. He appeared dazed, his clothes stained with blood. Officers immediately took him into custody, and the apartment was cordoned off as a crime scene. Investigators began piecing together the events of the evening, but the conflicting accounts and lack of witnesses made it difficult to determine exactly what had happened. Adrian was taken to the police station for questioning. He claimed that the entire incident had been a tragic accident. According to his statement, Lila had brought the gun to the apartment, intending to confront Vanessa. He alleged that during the heated argument, Lila had brandished the weapon, and in the chaos that followed, it had gone off, killing Vanessa. Adrian insisted that he had tried to disarm Lila, but in the struggle, the gun discharged again, fatally wounding her. The police, however, were skeptical of Adrian's version of events. The evidence at the scene raised more questions than answers. Forensic experts determined that the gun had been fired twice, but the trajectory of the bullets and the positioning of the bodies didn't fully align with Adrian's account. Additionally, there were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Lila had been let into the apartment willingly. This contradicted Adrian's claim that she had arrived uninvited and unannounced. As the investigation continued, more details about Adrian's relationship with Vanessa began to emerge. Friends and colleagues of Vanessa came forward, describing her as a devoted mother who had been swept off her feet by Adrian's charm. They revealed that Vanessa had confided in them about her frustrations with Adrian's reluctance to leave his wife. Some even mentioned that Vanessa had expressed concerns about the toll the affair was taking on her emotional well-being. On the other hand, Lila's friends and family painted a picture of a woman who had been deeply hurt by her husband's betrayal but was determined to protect her children and her reputation. They described Lila as strong-willed and resourceful, someone who wouldn't back down from a fight. This characterization added another layer of complexity to the case, as it suggested that Lila may have confronted Adrian and Vanessa with the intention of taking control of the situation. The media frenzy surrounding the case only added to the pressure on law enforcement. Headlines referred to Adrian as a fallen hero, a once-respected doctor whose actions had led to a tragic loss of life. Vanessa was portrayed as a victim of circumstance, a single mother who had been caught in a dangerous love triangle. Lila, meanwhile, was depicted as a scorned wife whose quest for justice had ended in tragedy. The public was divided, with some sympathizing with Adrian and others condemning him as a manipulative liar. As the case moved forward, Adrian was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that Adrian had orchestrated the confrontation, luring both women to the apartment with the intention of silencing them. They presented evidence of Adrian's financial troubles, suggesting that he had been motivated by a desire to avoid a costly divorce and the potential fallout from his affair becoming public. The prosecution also highlighted inconsistencies in Adrian's statements, pointing out that his version of events changed multiple times during the investigation. Adrian's defense team, however, painted a very different picture. They argued that Adrian was a victim of circumstance, a man who had been caught in a volatile situation that spiraled out of control. They claimed that Lila's actions had been driven by jealousy and rage, and that Adrian had acted in self-defense. The defense also pointed to Adrian's clean record and reputation as a respected doctor, arguing that he had no history of violence or criminal behavior. The trial was a media spectacle, with reporters and spectators packing the courtroom every day. Testimonies from friends, family members, and forensic experts provided a detailed but often conflicting account of the events leading up to the murders. The prosecution and defense sparred over key pieces of evidence, including the gun, the trajectory of the bullets, and the timeline of events. One of the most emotional moments of the trial came when Vanessa's sister took the stand. She spoke about the impact of Vanessa's death on her 2 young children, who were now being raised by their aunt. Her testimony served as a poignant reminder of the human cost of the tragedy, shifting the focus from the sensational details of the case to the lives that had been forever changed. As the trial progressed, the jury was faced with a difficult task. The evidence was circumstantial, and the conflicting testimonies made it challenging to determine the truth. Was Adrian a cold-blooded killer who had planned the murders to protect his secrets, or was he a man who had been caught in a tragic series of events beyond his control? The answer would ultimately come down to the jury's interpretation of the evidence and the credibility of the witnesses. After weeks of testimony, arguments, and emotional moments in the courtroom, the trial of Dr. Adrian Calloway finally reached its conclusion. The jury had been presented with 2 starkly different narratives. The prosecution's claim that Adrian had deliberately planned the murders to protect his reputation and avoid the fallout of his affair, and the defense's argument that Adrian was a victim of circumstance, caught in a tragic and chaotic confrontation. The jury deliberated for 3 days, carefully reviewing the evidence and weighing the testimonies of witnesses. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as everyone awaited the verdict. On the 3rd day, the jury returned with their decision. The foreperson stood, and the judge asked the question that would determine Adrian's fate. We, the jury, find the defendant, Dr. Adrian Calloway, guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Gasps filled the courtroom as the verdict was read. Adrian sat motionless, his face pale, as the weight of the words sank in. His defense team immediately requested leniency during sentencing, arguing that Adrian's actions, while tragic, were not premeditated. They pointed to his previously clean record and his contributions to the medical field as reasons for the court to consider a lighter sentence. The prosecution, however, pushed for the maximum penalty. They argued that Adrian's actions had been calculated and that he had shown no regard for the lives of Vanessa Morales and Laya Calloway. They emphasized the devastating impact of the murders on the victims' families, particularly Vanessa's young children, who had been left without a mother. During the sentencing hearing, family members of both Vanessa and Laya were given the opportunity to speak. Vanessa's sister, who had taken in her children after her death, delivered a heart-wrenching statement. She described the pain of explaining to 2 innocent children that their mother was never coming home and the challenges of helping them navigate their grief. She called on the court to deliver justice for Vanessa, who had been taken from her family far too soon. Laya's brother also addressed the court, speaking about the loss of his sister and the betrayal she had endured. He described Laya as a strong and loving woman who had dedicated her life to her family and her career. He expressed his anger and sadness over the way her life had ended and urged the judge to hold Adrian accountable for his actions. When it was Adrian's turn to speak, he addressed the court in a voice that was barely above a whisper. He expressed remorse for the deaths of Vanessa and Laya, claiming that he never intended for anyone to get hurt. He apologized to their families and to his own children, who would now have to live with the stigma of his actions. However, his words did little to sway the judge, who had already made up their mind. In the end, the judge sentenced Adrian Calloway to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent as the sentence was handed down, the gravity of the situation sinking in for everyone present. Adrian was led away in handcuffs, his once promising life now reduced to a series of devastating choices and their irreversible consequences. The verdict and sentencing marked the end of a long and painful chapter for the families of Vanessa and Laya, but the scars left by the tragedy would remain. Vanessa's children continued to live with their aunt, who did her best to provide them with a sense of stability and normalcy. Laya's children, now teenagers, struggled to come to terms with the loss of their mother and the betrayal of their father. Both families were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, finding solace in each other and in the hope that justice had been served. The case also left a lasting impact on the community, sparking conversations about the consequences of infidelity, the importance of seeking help in times of emotional distress, and the devastating effects of unchecked anger and betrayal. It served as a grim reminder of how quickly lives can be destroyed when emotions are allowed to take control. The story of Vanessa Morales, Laya Calloway, and Dr. Adrian Calloway is one that continues to resonate long after the courtroom doors closed. It's a tale of choices, consequences, and the devastating ripple effects that can follow when trust is broken and emotions are left unchecked. For those who knew and loved Vanessa and Laya, the pain of their loss remains a constant presence, a reminder of lives cut tragically short. Vanessa's children, now growing up without their mother, are a testament to resilience. Under the care of their aunt, they've slowly begun to rebuild their lives, though the absence of Vanessa is a void that can never truly be filled. Her sister has worked tirelessly to ensure that her memory lives on, sharing stories of Vanessa's kindness, determination, and love for her family. For her, justice was served, but the cost was immeasurable. Laya's children, too, have faced an uphill battle. Losing their mother in such a violent and public way, coupled with the betrayal of their father, left them grappling with emotions far beyond their years. They've had to navigate the complexities of grief, anger, and confusion, all while trying to find a path forward. Despite the challenges, they've leaned on each other and their extended family for support, determined to honor Laya's legacy. As for Adrian, his life behind bars is a stark contrast to the one he once led. Stripped of his title, reputation, and freedom, he now spends his days reflecting on the choices that led him to this point. Whether his remorse is genuine or simply a product of his circumstances is a question only he can answer. What's certain is that his actions have left a trail of pain and destruction that will never be forgotten. This case serves as a sobering reminder of the fragility of human relationships and the importance of accountability. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about love, betrayal, and the lengths people will go to protect their secrets. While justice may have been served in the eyes of the law, the emotional scars left behind will take a lifetime to heal. Thank you for joining us on True Crime Stories Arena. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations of the cases that continue to captivate and haunt us. Until next time, stay safe and take care.